Good day, Acting Chairperson. We have a fourth member. You can proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Hajira. So once again, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this morning's meeting of the Portfolio Committee of Communications and Digital Technology. I see Honorable Mkhakha has joined us. Thank you so much, Honorable Mkhakha. And I see DG has joined us as well. Good morning to DG. DM was on the call earlier, and all members. You're all welcome to this meeting. May I please request Hajira, the Secretary, to apply to the agenda?
Mr. Suprati, if we can just do the apologies.
Yes, please. Sorry, please. Can we have the apologies, Hajira?
We have an apology for the minister who was at the cabinet meeting. And then we have an apology for two members, Mr. Souls and Mr. Leisha. Thank you.
Thank you, Hajira. Good morning, honorable members. Good morning to DM Bungubele. I see you on the call. Good morning to chairpersons of the various boards. I don't see the minister on the call as yet. Good morning, everybody, and thank you and welcome to today's session of the Portfolio Committee. Today is Wednesday, June 18th. Are you all welcome to this meeting? May I please request Hajira to give us an indication whether we have a quorum to begin with the meeting?
Good morning, Acting Chairperson. Acting Chair, we have three members as far as I know, Ms. Bodlani, yourself, Mr. Matafa. If there's any other member, when we have a fourth member, we can proceed. Acting Chair.
Thank you so much, Hajira. Please let us know once we have the fourth member so we can proceed.
Good day, Acting Chairperson. We have a fourth member. You can proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Hajira. So once again, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this morning's meeting of the Portfolio Committee of Communications and Digital Technology. I see Honorable Mkhakha has joined us. Thank you so much, Honorable Mkhakha. And I see DG has joined us as well. Good morning to DG. DM was on the call earlier, and all members. You're all welcome to this meeting. May I please request Hajira, the Secretary, to apply to the agenda?
Mr. Suprati, if we can just do the apologies.
Yes, please. Sorry, please. Can we have the apologies, Hajira?
We have an apology for the minister who was at the cabinet meeting. And then we have an apology for 2 members, Mr. Souls and Ms. Felicia. Thank you.
Thank you, Ajira. Please, can we have the agenda now? Members, we have the agenda before us. My understanding is that we need 6 members to adopt the minutes. So the item on minutes we can do when we do have 6 members. At the moment, my understanding is that we have 4, sufficient enough for us to collate and proceed with the meeting, but not sufficient enough for us to adopt the minutes. So my suggestion is we can deal with that when we do have the necessary quorum for the adoption of the minutes. Then we have item 2, the briefing by the Department and ICASA on the 3rd and 4th quarter performance, their financial report. As we had indicated, the 3rd and 4th quarter reports are very, very crucial to this portfolio committee in particular, because we were constituted roundabout in July. And the 3rd and 4th quarter report covers the performance from October right up till March, which is really at the time when this portfolio committee had oversight. So we will be very keenly receiving the 3rd and 4th quarter reports of the DCDT and the authority. And the last item is the briefing by the DCDT on any amendments to the already considered APP strategic plans and APPs. There is some correspondence in that matter, which has been shared in our group, and I think we will deal with that item 3 when we come to it. So members, that's the agenda before us. Please may I request one of our members to for the adoption of the agenda. Thank you, Honorable Bodlani moves. Honorable Oscar seconds it. Thank you so much, honorable members.
Acting Chair, it's Hajira. If I could just add, Acting Chair, on item 2, I have put it on the group on the 13th of May. We dealt with the quarter 3 and quarter 4 quarter performance and financial report of ICASA, as well as the quarter 3 financial report of DCDT. At that time, on the 13th of May, we didn't have enough chance to complete the process, and members were still supposed to ask questions on that matter. We then also had to wait on the quarter 4 DCDT report, and therefore we are at that stage. So in terms of ICASA, members would have to ask questions for observations and recommendations, and to consider the quarter 4 report. Thank you, Acting Chair.
Thank you so much, Hajra, for the clarity. That's a very material intervention and clarity from you, which necessarily means that we will not be receiving the 3rd quarter report of the department, which has been dealt with already, nor will we receive the 3rd and 4th quarter report of ICASA. We will only receive the 4th quarter report for the department, and we will allow ourselves the opportunity to engage the presentation of ICASA that was done already, and the 2 presentations and the presentation of DCDT. Thank you for the clarity. May I therefore then invite DM Gugubele to lead us into the 4th quarter presentation of the department. DM.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, honorable members. We are accompanied by the team here, led by the GG, which will reflect on the 4th quarter as advised ourselves. You will be aware that the minister is actually attending, is supposed to be attending the cabinet committee as we speak. So it's us who are here today. There will be, of course, reflections on the work done, whether it is e-services, filling of vacant posts, and the progress on the digital migration. We'll reflect on what has been achieved, underachievements, and what we intend to do with regard to the underachievements. We do also acknowledge the work done by the audit committee, who actually have assisted us to actually construct a report that are more discernible and intelligible. In that regard, without waste of time, may you allow me to ask the DG to lead the team in so doing. DG?
Thank you very much to the Deputy Minister. Greetings to the Honourable Chair, Honourable Members, the chairs, as well as the representative of state-owned entities on the platform, and my colleagues. Chair, I hope I am audible and also visible.
Yes.
With regards to, thank you very much, Chair. With regard to our fourth quarter, and I'm just going to maybe request, Chair, as we put up the presentation, I would like to, I would be assisted by our colleague, the DDG for administration. Perhaps to quickly highlight, Chair, because quarter four not only presents the last quarter of the 2024-2025 financial year, it is also then the closure of the MTSF of the sixth administration. And I would like to briefly just highlight some of the department's performance. Whilst, Chair, our performance as of quarter four stood at 75% in terms of the APP target, and as indicated, as you will see in the presentation, it means 6 out of 6 targets were not achieved out of the 24 that the department had planned. Yes, we do have catch-up plans with regards to those targets that are not achieved. But just to highlight some of then the successes, out of one of the key programs is on the e-government services. And we've had 136 government e-services which have been digitized and now available online. This work has helped us to leapfrog as a country. And I think it has also been acknowledged under the UN in terms of the e-government index 2024 report, of which South Africa moved from the position 65 to position 40 out of 193 countries. The great performance by South Africa underscores our commitment to implementing digital government initiatives aimed at enhancing service delivery, increasing transparency, as well as encouraging e-participation, as well as strengthening both digital infrastructure as well as human capital. Also then want to highlight, Chair, that linked to this human capital program, the department closed off the MTSF with having done digital skills training program and which benefited over 5 million citizens. Obviously, this was with our partners, multiple of our partners, and we really want to appreciate the work that has been done under the digital and future skills program. When we do come back to present our new targets, you will then see that we are also then wanting to gain traction from this 5 million to now focus in terms of these high-end skills that we need in our digital economy program. We also closed the year having expanded broadband access to over 1.8 million households, honorable members. Now, these are 1.8 million households in rural and underserved areas in our country. And this is driven under the program of SA Connect, which is then being championed by our 2 entities, which is then BBI and Sentech. Now, these were 1.8 million households who previously did not have internet connectivity or Wi-Fi in their communities. And we are happy that we've been able to expand that reach. And then on digital broadcasting migration, honorable members, as you would know, we could not switch off due to the litigation by the broadcasters as well as interest groups. We, however, are still committed to ensuring that every indigenous household would then have a subsidized decoder. We're also empowered over 1,279 installation companies. And I'm hoping that Honorable Saul will be able to hear this number in terms of job creation, Chair. Now, those 1,279 installation companies, you would know, they probably then employ between 3 to 4 people. And this is definitely contributing to the job creation in our country. I think more can still be done, but at least this was then our contribution. In this financial year, we will engage the broadcasters. I think the minister has committed to seek an amicable solution and a settlement, honorable members, on this analog switch off, because we need to ensure that as a country we move forward with regards to the digital services. Now, in terms of the areas of underachievement, honorable members, just to highlight that we've met with the DDGs and they are taking action against non-performance. HR has committed to supporting the DDGs in this regard. I've issued warning letters. I've asked the managers to explain the non-compliance or poor performance in this regard. I know it's only 6 targets, but it's 6 critical programs for our financial year, which has also then resulted in us regressing our performance from previous financial years. I just want to quickly underscore before I also invite the CFO to the platform, honorable members. In terms of our expenditure, as we close the year, the expenditure as of 31st March amounted to 2.9 billion, or what we consider 73%. Now, the variance of this 27% mainly is under the 2 areas. One is on the compensation of employees. Whilst we got a sign off on our revised organizational structure, there's now this consultation process that we still need to get the sign off from DPSA with regards to the positions. We've already advertised over 17 positions, honorable members, but we still have quite a substantive number, I think around 65, that are still needs to be advertised. We are engaging DPSA seeking approval of these, and some of these obviously just needs to be concurred and signed off by our principals. So in this financial year, would be very much so focusing in terms of, again, the recruitment process, creating jobs, and making sure that we fill up all the vacant positions in the department. The second area of underspending, honorable members, relates to goods and services, mainly in the SA Connect program. And this is mainly due to the challenges of the new model that the National Treasury has
Chair. Yes. Is it me or are we dealing with there's absolute silence? It's, you know, it's just okay, thank you, Chair.
Apologies, Chair, I got cut off.
Just one moment. Thanks, Comrade Honorable DG. I was just trying to check on my other device if it was my fault or... Okay, so thank you so much. We can proceed.
My apologies. I also got cut off from my side as well. There seems to be a problem. Maybe it's a Zoom problem if all of us then are experiencing it. We'll check on that. I'm using now my mobile device. Honorable members, as I was indicating that under the goods and services with regards to the SA Connect program, the most adverse impact has been that we've had to surrender these funds back to National Treasury. And this will have an adverse impact with regards to not only the SA Connect program, but also the SMMEs and ISPs that are obviously doing the work under the BBI, Sentech, as well as CETA. We are engaging, we're still continuing to engage National Treasury to find ways in terms of how we can accelerate the connectivity plans. So, Chair, with that, I would like to now, if I can ask that the presentation can be put up, and I would like to invite our DDG for administration to just quickly take us through. I've already highlighted by and large some of the key programs that we've done. We will focus on the areas with regards to underachievement, and I'll also then invite the CFO to come in on the funding and then the financial expenditure to just expand on it further. Thank you. If we could have the presentation up, please.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, DG. I don't have the rights to host to share the presentation. If I can be assisted.
Then go ahead.
All right, let me do that. Thank you.
May I also please request that you switch your video on?
Oh, thank you. I'll do that. Just putting it. Good morning, Chairperson of the committee and honorable members, DM and DG, and all members on the platform. I'll take you through the Q4 performance of the department, highlighting, I won't focus more on the other issues. I'll just go straight to the overall performance of the department. That by the end of Q4, we had committed the 24 targets, only 18, which is 75% of the APP targets were achieved, and 6 targets were not achieved by the end of Q4, Chairperson. And this is the performance by programs, where Program 1, administration, there were 3 targets, all were achieved. Program 2, 2 targets, all were achieved, which is 100%. And Program 3, we had 4. Program 3 is the policy development and research. We had 4 targets, 1 was achieved and 3 were not achieved. We're sitting at 25%, Chairperson. And Program 4, enterprise and public oversight, we had 6, all 6 APP targets were achieved. And Program 5, infrastructure development support, 3 targets and all were achieved with 100%. And the last program, Program 6, on the information society and capacity building, we had 6 targets and 3 were achieved, which is 50%, Chairperson. That brings us to 75%. And if I can, Chairperson, highlight possibly only the areas where we didn't achieve, Chairperson. Is we had 6 areas, which is the audio and audiovisual content services and online content service safety bill that was supposed to be submitted to the cluster and cabinet for approval to introduce in Parliament. This was not achieved, and it has been a problem since the Q1, Chairperson. And we, however, made arrangements in terms of internal arrangements to make sure that in the current financial year this is achieved, because there were areas that we identified as problematic. And the other target was with regards to the implementation of Digital Economy Master Plan monitored. So in this case, there's been a lot of work that has happened. However, the challenges was the issue of misalignment with the information that was supposed to be received from our stakeholders. Some of the information that was received was not in the implementation plan. As you know, that when we are monitoring this kind of targets, we have to ensure that there's an implementation plan that is developed in the beginning. However, the work has happened is that there has been issues of alignment, which led to the target not to be achieved. That also applies to the Presidential Commission on the Fourth Industrial Revolution Strategic Implementation Plan Coordinated. So although the work has happened, however, the issue of misalignment where you find the implementation plan is not aligned. So in terms of this one, we had also made arrangements in the department to make sure that in the current implemented financial year, this alignment is eliminated. And the other one is with regards to the 80% increase in the integrated action plan in support of the National Strategic Plan on the Gender-Based Violence Coordinated. So there has been reports, and we also had issues where in other instances, some of our stakeholders provided information outside the reporting period, and that has been the case through the reporting period, which is problematic in terms of achieving these targets. And the same applies with the 2 monitoring reports on the participation of women, youth, persons with disability, and participation in the procurement and SMME development and employment equity. I must assure, as the DG has indicated, that we are having the information. If you are to ask us, honorable members, we can even provide you with all the information. I think I have even included in the end of this slide the issue of, for example, the issue of employment equity, which is very critical in the sector. So we also work with ICASA in also sourcing this kind of information. However, there's been issues with regards to the reporting, to ensure that this target is achieved. And the implementation of DDM as well, there's issues of the misalignment and where certain activities that were planned were not achieved. That has led Chairperson to the target not to be achieved. As we had done our internal audit and as well as the branch quality assurance. I just want to indicate that the DG has already indicated that in the areas where the targets were not achieved and there's been poor performance, there's been issues. We had taken consequence management where we issued letters, and there has been warning letters, and we ensured that the activities and interventions that were not achieved, there's been catch-up plans that has been developed, and to make sure that we don't miss the service delivery that was intended. And the other issue that we will also need to take some of the managers for training, because we have identified some gaps in terms of taking the work that was supposed to be done. And then we also make sure that where we don't have capacity, we have advertised, and we are going to appoint as soon as possible. So we are having a huge recruitment to make sure that we are fully operational. So I just want to, I want to take you quickly to the last, where I indicated that we are having maybe the issues of where we also put we are having the employment equity information as at 31st March 2025, Chairperson. I may not dwell much on this one, but just to indicate that this information is readily available, and then it has been shared with our parliamentary liaison officer. If maybe it hasn't come, we will also provide this information. And I can go back to the issue of the finances, Chairperson, and then the CFO will take us through you, Chairperson, and the DG. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to invite the CFO, if she could take us through the presentation. Could you kindly put it on presentation mode, please?
DG, from my side, is on presentation mode. I don't know, maybe if it is low because of connectivity.
Thank you. If in the absence of the CFO, I'd like to then maybe quickly take the honorable members through the financials. As indicated earlier, in terms of Q4 expenditure, we were sitting at 73%. Honorable members, in the main, we can move to the next slide. We will then be able to show you where the variance has been, and it has been driven in the main. One, it's obviously under the compensation of employees, where we've only been able to spend 88% of the overall target. And then with regards to the SA Connect as well, we've also had, as I said, we've had to return back the available funds of over R1 billion back to National Treasury. And then on the others, I think on the payment of capital assets, there was also a delay with regards to the procurement of laptops. Honorable members, I just want to give an assurance, because there were delays with the service provider on the delivery of these laptops, and we've subsequently had to make sure that we write to him, we cancel. We were rather quite concerned with regards to how this process was being undertaken, and we did not want to find ourselves in similar circumstances as what has been in the media. And as such, we have had to therefore restart the process with regards to the procurement of these assets. That also then contributed to the under expenditure, which was sitting at 51%. So overall, in terms of the expenditure, we were sitting at 73%. Next slide, please. This just then provides the breakdown. I'd like to move to the next slide to be able to show you the integrated audit action plans. Again, when we then look in terms of, unless the CAE is on the platform, Mr. James Kadebe. James and Sydney are not on the platform, honorable members. Just to then indicate that the overall resolution with regards to addressing of our integrated audit action plans, we're sitting at 33%, and the unresolved deficiencies in the main relates to obviously the human resource environment in terms of the leave management, the risk register with regards to that. We've had an engagement. It's not just a human resource management matter, honorable members, but it also is about managing the leave forms as well. Then on the POPI Act as well, I'm happy to indicate that at least we had a risk meeting yesterday where we have now resolved in as far as how to make sure this. For now, honorable members, we've done our due diligence. We just want to ensure the quality assurance as well as compliance with regards to the POPI. We will therefore be getting an external service provider to just make sure that what we have put in, the measures that we've put in as far as maintaining the database securely, protection of personal data, and as also making sure that as we then deal with issues related to the data, both personal data as well as data information, we are in full compliance with it. So we will therefore be having an independent assessment that will then assess in terms of then our rate of compliance. On IT technologies, unfortunately, this has been a big challenge for us. We've had to second our CIO to ICASA, and this has therefore led to a regression in this area of work. We've now sourced the services or assistance from Sentech, utilizing their expertise to assist us with in terms of IT technologies. But just to indicate in this that there were 9 integrated action audit plan items that would need still to be expedited. Already we've addressed 3 of those. On the strategic planning and monitoring, I think the main issue there was about the alignment of the performance agreements and formalizing the discussions in terms of performance management in a quarterly management meetings, and we've addressed those. There was also then the issue with regards to what is in the strategic plan vis-a-vis the APP, the alignment of that, the measuring of the targets towards the year end, But as I indicated in my opening remarks, honorable members, we were then able to achieve most of what is in the MTSF. However, the biggest challenge that came from the audit was how do we measure that and making sure that we're really close with regards to the alignment. So this then is still a matter that is sitting. We are hoping that as we're being assessed by the auditors in this as we close the financial year, then we'll be able to see improvement in this regard. And then the last two projects, honorable members, again, they remain obviously strategic projects that are being assessed by the auditors, which is on the BDM as well as the SA Connect. Safe to say, happy that even with our audit committee meetings, these matters are being assessed. And we've actually then been able to close the challenges that were there with regards to the broadcasting digital migration as well as SA Connect. SA Connect still remains. In the main, again, it was related to the item 4, the strategic alignment between what we do as a department and our implementing agencies. And our work as a department remains there for the monitoring as well as the reporting of these two projects. Again, we are hoping that as we then are going to be assessed by the AGSA, we would then be able to see improvement in this regard. If we could move to the next slide, please. With regards to the progress, as I highlighted on the audit, on the integrated audit action plan, just to indicate that the overall rate was at 44%. There are other unresolved areas related to governance, operational policies, and standard operating procedures. I'm happy to indicate that we've now signed off with regards to the operating policies in the department. We've reviewed those through the relevant structures, and they've by and large, most of them have been signed off. 2 of them were referred back from the bargaining chamber, and we are obviously sorting those out. And then the standard operating procedures are also being effected and managed by the various management and business units. I did indicate on the other issue on human resources related to skills audit, as well as the HR plan. We now do have a draft HR plan that is awaiting approval through the necessary structures. And we're hoping that, because that was dependent on the finalization of the organizational structure, which we now have. We're addressing the wasteful and fruitless expenditures. We've been able to sign off on those. We've had to follow due process with regards to the consultation, and where consequence management or recovery of funds where it was required, honorable members, we've been able to do that. And we are also even taking it to the extent of obviously the litigations and taking it up in terms of then the recovery of those funds. And then on the procurement as well as contract management and the role, the institutionalization and control measures have been created in the new structure. And I'm hoping then also that this matter will now then receive the necessary attention. As we now move to the last slide, just to give then assurance with regards to our processes, highlighting the fact that we continue to monitor and also the implementation of the integrated audit action plan, strengthening the compliance measures within the department, ensuring that we have the necessary standard operating procedures and that this matter continuously sits on the departmental executive as well as other governance structures, including our audit committee meetings. Performance agreements of senior managers of the department has been enhanced to ensuring that there are clear measures. I've put in personally on all the DDGs and the chief directors risk management, risk assessment in their KPAs to ensure that they are able then to manage also the issues related to risk. And then finally, the CFO conducts regular follow-up meetings with then the relevant managers to provide accurate portfolio of evidence for the implementation of the integrated audit action plan. Honorable members, as you would know and have reported in the past, for the portfolio itself, we do also conduct an integrated audit action plan, which is led by the CAE in the department, meeting with all the other CAEs of our 11 entities And that is also then towards us addressing and improving our rate in terms of moving towards a clean audit as the entire portfolio. I'd like to therefore, there was a request, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, by Honorable Sol. We've added this slide. We noted that you may not have it, but this relates to your equity targets within the department, just to underscore where we're at with regards to the male-female ratio and percentage within the department. And then if we could just move to the issues related to in the workforce, this then shows you where we're at in terms of SMS and non-SMS members. We've also shown you the demographics with regards to the various race groups within our country as well. I think you would then be able to see that there is a balanced scorecard. And then lastly, just to underscore that with regards to persons with disability, we are meeting the national requirement. However, my biggest concern remains the issue with related to youth employment, and that unfortunately we're sitting quite fairly below the 30% target. So our recruitment focus, our recruitment process is going to very much so focus on the recruitment of youth in order for us to reach then the 30% target that has been put forward. Honorable members, that then ends the presentation from the department. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, DG. Let me just check before I open the floor for member engagement. DM, is there any additions to the presentation you wish to make?
No, I think the DG's presentation has actually touched all the key significant areas. We are ready for engagement.
Thank you, members of the portfolio, of the department for your presentation. It was indeed well received and weighted, as I said, because largely our interest is this was the last quarter of the last financial year in which this portfolio committee has been intimately involved, and hence the third and fourth quarters were of particular interest to us. Members, I'm going to allow us a few minutes to just maybe allow us. Let me just look at it. It's now 9:40. Can I just allow members to gather their thoughts, because we will be engaging the department as well as the ICASA presentations. So we've got the Q4 for department. So we'll do the department first, the Q3 and Q4. Members can look at their notes and refresh their notes from the last presentation of Q3 as well as the ICASA presentation. So it's 9:41. At 9:45, I'll start to take hands for the engagement of the DCDT presentation first and then the ICASA presentation. Thank you.
Chair, please note me.
Sorry, Honorable Bodlani, I didn't see a hand up.
I actually thought I was pressing the hands button, but I was unmuting myself. I do apologize.
Yes.
Chair, considering the last meeting we had with ICASA, I know I am personally not going to find my notes on that presentation. Is it possible for you to give them at least 2 minutes, 3 minutes to just at a high level, just remind us what we engaged on, and let's just jog our memories, if you don't mind.
No problem. We can make that request. Is the chairperson of ICASA, is the request from ICASA to do a quick refresher for 2 to 3 minutes?
Morning, Chair. It's
good morning.
and members and DM. Yes, I think that request, we can consider that. Thank you. We can do that.
Thank you, Mr. Motibi. Thank you so much. Maybe you can request someone from ICASA to do that refresher for us. When you're ready,
Chair, just give us 5 minutes.
No problem. No problem. So we'll resume the moment ICASA is ready to give us that recap of their presentation.
Morning, Chair. If we could just get some permission for flighting from the Secretary.
Secretary, please assist.
The person just repeat who needs to share. I've given it to Nicholas.
Good morning, Chairperson and honorable members, DM and colleagues. Thank you very much. Chair, if you allow me, I've got my team, Mr. David Molapo. He will do a high-level 5 minutes on our Q3 and Q4, and as requested by honorable member Bodlani. Mr. Molapo, if you could just take the committee through. Thank you very much for the opportunity once more. Thanks.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning to the parliamentary committee members. Good morning to the acting minister, the deputy minister, and the rest of the colleagues on the call. What I'll just do, perhaps just to open my video here. Person, can I get the presentation to be expanded so that I can then be able to see that?
We are able to see it very clearly.
Yeah, on my side is showing on the right-hand corner. I don't know why. Okay, let me escape from this mode. Okay, Chair, I'm really struggling to see it from this mode. It's sitting on the right-hand corner, and I'm not able to. Can I just get assistance with that?
Jira, can you please assist? On our side, it's occupying our entire screen, so we're quite happy with what we're seeing on this side.
I've given the right to everyone speaking.
There's a movement.
But Chairperson, maybe what I can do is try to share from my side. Right. I'm looking at it from my side, Chairperson. So I'll just be moving based on my slides this side, and then hopefully as I go, the person beaming can also then be following what I'm doing this side. So, Chairperson, in terms of the presentation, it's really about the fact that we, as ICASA, if one looks at the activities that we did for the quarter, they're still aligned to our legislative and policy mandates, you know, as articulated in the different documents that are out there as published. And we are still contributing to the strategic plan 2019-2024 in terms of the outputs that we are talking about here. Where in our strat plan, we talk about our impact statement, but also we indicate the outcomes that we want to achieve that are going to then lead to the achievement of that impact statement. If one then looks at the specific quarters, what one finds here is that in terms of absolute numbers, in Q3, we had planned 29 targets. We achieved 27. We just missed 2 there. If one then looks at the fourth quarter, we have 46 targets that we planned, and then we achieved 42 and just missed 4. If one looks at this in terms of the different programs that we have, one would realize that ICASA has got 5 programs. The first one being administration, then we have licensing and compliance, policy, research, engineering and technology, and regions and consumer affairs. So out of this, in the third quarter, about 8 of this, because in program 1 we have some sub-programs there, they all achieved 100%, and then we had one achieving 50 and another one achieving 75. In terms of the fourth quarter, we had about 6 programs achieving 100%. The rest were sitting at 80, and there was one at 75%. But if one then looks at the overall performance per quarter, in Q3, our overall performance was 93%, and then in Q4, we were sitting at 91%. If one then looks at areas where we didn't achieve, because this is quite important for one then to appreciate which areas we didn't achieve and what the reasons were, one finds that in program 1, under sub-program finance, we didn't actually achieve the target in terms of our desire to achieve an qualified audit. And the way we deal with this, it's a composite type of output where we look at fruitless and wasteful expenditure, but we also look at irregular expenditure and then also quality of our financial statements. As one would appreciate, in terms of the PFMA, you have to have no fruitless expenditure. Also, in terms of irregular expenditure, that should not be there. So what this means is that in any particular quarter, if you start experiencing fruitless and wasteful expenditure or irregular expenditure, you end up then already not working towards a clean audit. So that is actually the case here, because what we actually have is that we did incur some fruitless and wasteful expenditure. So, Chairperson, in terms of then the corrective measures that we came up with to deal with, here we are looking at coming up with an automated system that can then be able to assist in terms of some of this, because largely part of the work has been done manually in terms of the payment of invoices. If one then looks at the second target that we missed, here we were looking at progress towards the development of a satellite regulatory framework. So we couldn't actually achieve this. Our target was to achieve 50% in the third quarter, so rather 40% with an annual target of 50. We couldn't achieve this, so there was a delay in finalizing the discussion document due to limited capacity that we have internally. So that being the case, then we're not able to achieve that. If one looks at the non-achievements of the fourth quarter, here once again, you have the same targets in terms of unqualified audit, where once again, because of fruitless and wasteful expenditure that we have already incurred, then we were not actually able to achieve this. So, Chairperson, then if one then moves to the next one that we didn't achieve, this one is in terms of the human resources sub-program. Here we're looking at recruitment of women. So our target here was basically 41 in terms of the fourth quarter, but we reached 38. So that being the case, then that actually indicates that we didn't actually achieve that. It was largely because of some resignations that we actually got. Also, we're not able to fill the third position, which would have actually taken us to 41, the number 41 in terms of the target that we had there. So, Chairperson, going into the new financial year, the idea is then to try and make sure that we accelerate some effort in terms of recruitment of women. If one then looks at the other targets that we didn't achieve, this one is on policy research and analysis. Here we're looking at the number of findings document on the subscription television broadcasting services. Here we didn't achieve this, so the authority was unable to publish the findings document. And it was largely due to the inability to appoint an economic expert service provider, as the bidder was, the bid was non-responsive, Chair. Sorry about that. So then, Chair, going into the new financial year, then we are going to accelerate some efforts in order to make sure that we deliver on that. The last one, Chairperson, is on the advisory panel. So ICASA has got what we call CAP, Consumer Advisory Panel. The purpose of this is basically to advise Council on consumer issues. So each year, what they do is that they have to give what we call an advisory to Council. So the advisory was supposed to be submitted to Council before the end of the financial year. Unfortunately, it was sent on the 27th of March, which did not allow enough time then for Council to consider it. And that's how we then missed that target. So, Chairperson, just to maybe speak on some of the elements that we alluded to earlier in terms of the presentation, payment of suppliers within 30 days, just as an illustration of progress being made. We are indicating that in Q3, 20% of the invoices processed were outside the 30-day payment cycle. And this related to SMMEs, and the percentage reduced to 3 in Q4, which really shows much of the positivity that came into that. So some of the interventions that we have here, Chair, include a review of finance policies in terms of delegation of authority to be able to unlock some of the bottlenecks and create process efficiencies there. Review the financial structure of the finance division, and then also budget allocated for the procurement of the ERP system that I alluded to earlier on. So procurement is underway on that. In terms of the Q4 performance, Chair, I don't know if maybe I should hand over to our CFO here, who can then take us now through the Q3 and Q4 performance overview. With your permission, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. We can move to the next slide, Chair. Chair, this slide is about the collection of NIO revenue that we collect on behalf of the National Treasury or NRF. We have collected 99% of what we planned, which was 2.172. We collected 2.157, Chairperson. Next slide. This slide, Chair, is about the actual spending to date, which include all items. Chair, from a revenue point of view, we're sitting at 98%, mainly because due to us not realizing the interest as we had planned. We only collected about, we only got about 54,000 compared to 64,000, Chairperson. From an expending point of view, we spend about 99% on employee cost. On goods and services, Chair, we spend about 52%. In the main, the reason for this, Chair, which is still linked to the old issue of budgeting, where we're saying we included ring-fence funds as if we are going to spend all of it in 1 year, whereas it's a multi-year project. Chair, projects, majority of them, therefore we cannot be spending in 1 year. In the new financial year, we then try to correct that, Judge, and budget only what we plan to then spend in the year. And in particular, Chair, you recall we have to run the second spectrum. The second spectrum is over a number of years, Chair. So putting the figure in 1 year as if you're going to be spending all of it then led to this big variance that we could not actually achieve. The next screen, this one I think is a summary of what is happening up there. Oh, previous one, next one. Yeah, this is a summary per division. As you can see, of the program, as you can see, Chair, majority of the underspending happened under licensing and compliance and also research and policy analysis. Chair, this is where the ring-fence funds or funds that were allocated for specific projects sits, Chair. So that's why we have that underspending, Chair, compared to the administration, which has spent 98%. So the other programs, Chair, they in one form or another have that element of ring-fence funds, Chair. Hence, we have an underspending on each and every one of them. But because the IMT sits under licensing, it shows the biggest underspending, Chair. Thank you. Next slide. This is the asset and liability ratios, Chair. We are showing a 6 to 3, Chair, a 6 to 1, meaning we can pay 6 times of our liabilities, which shows a healthy status, Chairperson. Next slide. On this particular one, Chair, is the cash and bank and money that we have in the bank, Chair. The biggest element here, which I have to maybe explain a little bit more on, is the suspense account, Chair, the negative 143. If you recall, on the meeting of the 13th, we have indicated that we'll probably be referring this matter to the loss control, given that it's a credit implying that somebody may have taken government money or the state money. However, further investigation, Chair, which the team now, I've asked them to actually even get me evidence thereof, was this is not actually money that was spent by ICASA. It's money that was deposited by 2 companies. One looks like it's a state-owned entity, but we cannot identify that particular company. Hence, it's set on the credit. The other one was an international company that deposited money into the ICASA bank account. So it's not money that was spent, but it's actually money that ICASA received from 2 institutions. So technically speaking, this should not have appeared under the cash and bank, should have been a liability, Chair. So going forward, I think I've asked the team we actually even requested our banking institution, which is Nedbank, to try now assist in identifying those 2 companies so that we are able to then allocate the money correctly. The first one was received in 2019, which was about, I think, 75,000, if I'm not mistaken. The other one was received in 2021. So the money has been there, Chair, for a long time. But initially, when we asked the question, it was linked to petty cash, or we told it was petty cash, but actually, in actual fact, it's money that was deposited in the ICASA bank account. We then have to reclassify it going forward, Chairperson. Overall, we have 591 or 600,000 if we put the petty cash together in the bank, Chair. Next slide, I think is the last slide, Chair. This one, I think I'll revert to David if you're able to take us through it. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, Chair. If one then looks at what we have there in terms of the next slides here, this is basically now where we're just indicating some of the matters that we normally deal with, especially issues of litigation. We operate in a very litigious environment, and that being the case, then we have a number of cases that we have to deal with on a regular basis. So that being the case, Chair, what you have in front of you in terms of the third quarter, it's basically some of the cases that we have. If I shan't look into that in specifics, Chair. If you look at the fourth quarter, that is also then some of the cases that we are actually dealing with, Chairperson. Chairperson, that would bring us to the end of the presentation, and thank you for giving us the floor.
Thank you so much to the team from ICASA. Thank you to Chairperson and the team, Ngiyabonga, for indulging us at the short notice and giving us a quick briefing as requested by Honorable Bodlani. And let me also thank you, Honorable Bodlani, for requesting that. I think it's assisted all honorable members. Honorable members, let me allow us a minute, and then I think, or 2 minutes at the most, as you grab your thoughts, and then we will take hands. We'll allow 2 minutes. We'll take hands in the order of the DCDT first, and then we will tackle the ICASA. We will ask the questions, and then they will respond thereafter. Thank you. Thank you, honorable members. We can resume. I would like to, I'm taking hands now for engagement. Honorable Vilakazi, I recognize you. Honorable,
Thank you.
Honorable Matafa will follow you. Sorry, thank you, Honorable Vilakazi, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. And may I apologize for not being able to put my video on. I have terrible network here. I was just reflecting, Chair, that on Friday when we had the MNOs, I had the opportunity to speak about my own house, and I spoke about everything else except that. So I'll know better for next time so that I can get better network myself for the online meeting. But on a serious note, Chair, thank you so much. My questions are only for ICASA. Did you say we are taking the department first and then ICASA later, or can I go with my ICASA questions now?
You can go with ICASA. We're taking all questions one time. You can please ask your question on ICASA.
Thank you so much, Chair. This is something that I have spoken with some of the officials from ICASA about, but it cuts across the entities. And it's this reporting of indicators as unachieved when they have been partially achieved. Now, I can understand that when we say of course, we're always looking for 100% achievement. I've made a point about this myself in a committee meeting about the fact that we need to set a target for 100% achievement. What I do find a bit misleading almost but it's to the detriment of the entities themselves, actually, is when, take some of the indicators from ICASA that we've learned about today. There's one where they needed to submit a particular report. However, they were not able to get the expert to do a survey to produce the report for them. However, they've done the terms of reference for the experts. They've done all the other preparatory work except the final carrying out of the research, which they are not meant to do. So for me, that unachieved, they've actually achieved 60 or 70% of the work that needs to go towards that indicator. So in a way, it almost presents it, when we just hear that they didn't achieve that indicator, it presents it as if nothing was done in that instance. Whereas I think it might serve the entities better to say, we didn't achieve 100% on this one. Here's what happened over the course of the year, so that as a committee, we have the confidence, and the public has the confidence that these people were doing something, were doing work in the course of the year, as opposed to us having to work out for ourselves whether that is the case or not. But that's a point that I have felt the entities could improve in terms of how they report, if only for their own view, for their own how they themselves come across to the public and to us. But I'd love to hear what they think of that and whether it makes sense for them, or even if they have particular constraints that prevent them from doing so. The other question is just around the finances. There are funds that have been in limbo or unexplained for 4 and 6 years. One is from 2021 and the other from 2019. How does this come about for an entity such as ICASA that's got these top-notch finance people? And if there's a financial and accounting transaction that needs to happen to remove it from the books, why have those transactions not occurred? It just bothers me that something would linger as long as it has. The other 6 years, actually, it's 2025 now from 2019. When is it going to be fixed? And then I noted also that the engineering indicator was underspent, that it was 68% for the quarter, for the specific quarter. That's a bother for me, for an entity such as ICASA, where engineering is a key aspect of what they do. Could they please explain to us why there was that low expenditure in that regard? The other instance, 5 million rand on litigation costs. The presenter did make the point that it's a litigious environment that ICASA functions under. And I know from before that we've said that our inadequate legislation also compounds the matter of litigation for ICASA. But what ways can we put in place, ICASA, to reduce 5 million rand just on litigation costs is a lot, in my view. Is there a way that we can reduce these costs? And then my last question, Chair. I can't find my last question now, but thank you, Chair. That'll be it for now.
Thank you, Honorable Velakazi. Honorable Matafa, and will be followed by Honorable Bodlani. Honorable Matafa.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning to you, the DM, the team from the department as led by the DG and ICASA, as led by Ndate Mutibi. Chair, thank you for the presentations that we have received. My questions on the department were actually in relation to Q3. I accept that Q4 has been presented. And on my second question, I'll just check if whether my understanding is correct. The first one, Chair, was on the shortfall of expenditure, particularly as it relates on the SA Connect initiative. And I think the shortfall was at around 1.4 billion. So my question would have been the obstacle that hindered the progress of phase 2 implementation. what strategies would the department have introduced to guarantee prompt execution in Q4 to achieve the APP targets as related to this particular initiative? I know they would have spoken to it on Q4. My follow-up question on the same issue would be, with the realization of the strategies and the adjusted interventions, have they been allocated responsible individuals in the department who will own them, so that by the time of reporting, they are able then to be held accountable against what would have been assigned to them? The second question, Chair, is where I say I would require clarity. On Q3, it reflected 5 APP objectives that were not achieved. And if I'm correct, on Q4, they highlighted 6. So if they can just correct me if whether is it 5 and did they increase in Q4 to 6. And in Q3, one of them was the Digital Economy Master Plan and the PC4IR Strategic Plan. Now, the question would be, are there enough resources allocated to ensure that in Q4 and beyond, these 5 APP objectives are realized? And again, obviously, the same question would arise. Are the owners assigned to these particular responsibilities that will ensure achievement of these 5 or 6 APP targets that fell short? On ICASA, Chair, I also have 2 questions. Again, I wanted to speak on underspending, which has been attributed to postponement of various projects. So the question would be, what are the implications of this underspending on ICASA's capacity to fulfill its APP objectives? And what measures are being implemented to guarantee budget alignment moving forward? And maybe it's important, as ICASA responds, can they speak on maybe the root causes? Could it be systems? Could it be challenges with people? What could be the root cause that will cause such underperformance? However, Chair, having said that, on the second point is that we note there has been significant increase on the payment of invoices that are valid within the 30-day payment cycle. I think the improvement was about 3% in the Q4. Now, my question would be, what strategies or actions have been implemented and how were they aligned with ICASA's APP commitments of fostering SMME growth? And also, maybe it's important to understand, again, what could have been the driving force for the initial delays when there was a struggle to pay valid invoices within the prescribed time frame. Again, could it be people? Could it be processes? Could it be systems? And if that root cause have been identified, what will ICASA do to ensure that there is no repetition of this particular challenge? Chairperson, thank you very much for indulgence. I only had those 4 points that I wish to put forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Matafa. Honorable Bodlani.
Chairperson, I think it's more comments than it is questions. Starting with the analog switch off. Chair, I think it's really unfortunate for South Africa and South Africans that we are at this impasse on the switch off, especially considering the amount of investment that the country has poured into this project. So the fiscus has bled billions to get South Africans to move on the analog switch off. And hopefully this period, as per the court ruling, will enable the department and all the other implementing agents an opportunity to really push in terms of getting those that qualify to really come up and take up the use of the set-top boxes. But for this to continue in perpetuity is really not sustainable for South Africa when there are other issues when you talk about SA Connect, that require attention and of course, an investment. Chair, I really welcome the assertion by DG to say that there have been mechanisms to put consequence management processes in place. And hopefully when we next hear from the department, they will be able to tell us what was the result of those, and to hear that people have been given written warnings, because consequence management is something that we talk about highly in these cycles, but we never see the end of it. So I really hope DG will be able to come back to the portfolio committee and say, these are the outcomes of the consequence management processes, mechanisms that they have carried out. Chair, I'm really concerned about the slow movement of the department in terms of policy development. I don't know if the department would speak to us about what interventions are there. We've got a lot of policies that need to be amended. I did not quite get a sense that this is really being accelerated. If I missed it, I do apologize, but if they could just speak to us, and perhaps on the specific, if they could list what interventions are being made on the specific policies, and I don't think I need to list them. Chair, listening to the department and the presentation, one really gets a sense the need to really align the department to streamline the works that are being done by the department and the 11 entities. We really see the reinvestment in the same places. We really see a repeat where there could be a broader implementation to other areas and whatever. So for me, I think just to say, I would really love to hear more plans on how they would be strengthening and aligning, streamlining of the projects within the department and the entities. I would really love to hear more on that. Chair, perhaps we also on ICASA, Chair, I think it would be proper if you could just convey our condolences to the chairperson of ICASA. Last week he buried the family patriarch, and this week I see he's also lost another elderly member of his family. We do indeed convey our deepest condolences to you and your family, Tate Ramosi. Chair, I think what gives me comfort with ICASA is that now they will be operating with a full set of councillors. The process has been finalized, and it is my understanding that all but one, and hopefully the one is now also has taken up the position. This then strengthens ICASA to be able to really position itself as the regulator of the future. And I really hope that there is no excuses in terms of what ICASA should be doing, what ICASA can be doing as a regulator. And I really would love to hear more in terms of ICASA, in terms of research and development. And if they are able to share any documents with the portfolio committee, that could also empower us, that would really assist us to hear where is the sector going, where is regulation going, and where do you position yourself as a regulator within that space. And I was hoping to just hear more. I know they really spoke a lot about the issue of full expenditure and irregular expenditure, but I did not quite hear how they then tie in what the AG has spoken about in terms of those, to say how are they then going to ensure that they mirror that with the comments of the Auditor General. Yeah. Chair, when we met the mobile network operators last week, and in their wisdom, ICASA thought they do not want to be in the room, and we respect that. But the issue of satellite, of spectrum, releasing spectrum, came in as a, and I don't want to say excuse, as a hindrance to the reducing of data cost in South Africa. And obviously the issue of data cost and that data expiration really came in as a big issue in that meeting last week. What can ICASA tell this committee on the issue of spectrum? What is the latest? I know there was an issue where ICASA raised an issue about how they were short-charged through the process. But if we are going to really meet the development needs of the country, the conversation about the release of spectrum should be ongoing, and it should not be something that the goalpost keeps moving. What are the timelines looking like in terms of that? Because then it comes back to ICASA not releasing spectrum, where the MNOs will hide behind the slow release of spectrum and not reduce the data, which really is crippling the economy, it's crippling South Africans. Chair, the ICASA also spoke about satellite regulatory framework, which they are working on. My question would be, the draft regulations that were released by Minister Malatsi, how do they impact the process that they had already started, if at all? And yeah, if at all. And I did not get a sense of if any monies were sent back by ICASA or the department back to the National Treasury based on the projects that were not realized. If they could just speak to us on that, I would really appreciate it. Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Bodlani. Honorable Velakazi, I assume that's a legacy hand. So let me also add to the questions, and maybe let me start off where Honorable Bodlani, I'll start off with the ICASA first, alluded to our last week's engagement with the MNOs. In the previous week, the MNOs, they presented, who presented about their spectrum use and the industry allegations and a host of other measures. Licensing for spectrum will open again. This is for ICASA in about 3 years from now. Does anything in the plan speak to the readiness of the regulator for the upcoming licensing regime? The presentation of ICASA also highlights a notable underspending attributed to the postponement of various projects. Maybe my question to that will be, what are the implications of this underspending on ICASA's capacity to fulfill its APP objectives? And what would be the measures being implemented to guarantee budget alignment moving forward? Additionally, I would like to ask ICASA, in what ways does ICASA's performance in Q3 and Q4 reflect its adherence to its legislative mandates, including the Electronic Communications Act and the Broadcasting Act, as detailed in its APP? And maybe linked to that, what are some of the strategic aims in this regard that ICASA has to bring about greater alignment with these revised plans? And maybe one last one for ICASA would be, what were the significant shortcomings in Q3 and Q4? And what corrective actions is the regulator taking to realign itself with the APP targets? Moving to the department, and specifically its Q3 performance. In Q3, the report reveals a significant and notable shortfall in expenditure amounting to 1.49 billion on the SA Connect initiative. Maybe on this, my question would be, what particular obstacles hindered the progress of phase 2 implementation, and what strategies that the department have to employ to guarantee prompt execution so that it can achieve its targets? In the third quarter, 5 APP objectives fell short, notably the Digital Economy Master Plan and the PC4IR strategic plan. Maybe on that would be, what are your proactive strategies, such as maybe allocating resources, adjusting timelines that are being put in place to tackle these deficiencies? And I think the underspending compensation of employees amounting to 26.2 million is a direct result of unfilled positions in the organizations. Maybe related to that, what are the implications of the postponement in establishing the organizational framework on service positions, and what when can we expect these positions to be occupied? Flowing onto Q4 for the department, my questions to you would be, the underspending of 1 billion rand on Q4 on SA Connect again prompted a request for a rollover from the National Treasury. Now, what guarantees can the department offer to us to ensure that the project adheres to its updated timelines? And what repercussions will ensure should additional delays arise? And 2 more questions. Is managers received warning letters due to their inadequate performance? Now, doesn't this deter the managers from doing an effective job? What would have happened in the instance that a target was not in the control of that respective manager? And lastly, maybe we note that 33% of the internal audit findings have been addressed and leaving unresolved issues related to papaya and IT deficiencies. And the question related to that would be, in what ways will the revamped organizational framework enhance compliance efforts? And what temporary measures are established to address potential risks? Honorable members, I'll pause there with my reflections and questions, and maybe let me hand over to DM, and through DM to direct how they will respond. DM, I'll hand over back to you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. As usual, let me thank members for questions which are not just clarity seeking, also value adding in the work we do. And I think because questions generally fall squarely under the DG and the team, if DG can organize a team on how to respond to the questions.
Thank you very much to the honorable members and to the DM as well. We will respond to the questions, and there were some of them. I know maybe starting off with Honorable Vilakazi, he was asking a question, posing it to ICASA, but it's a challenge that we're all facing, Honorable Vilakazi. Now, in terms of quarter 1 to 3, one can indicate a percentage performance, and obviously, but when it comes to Q4, at the end, now they're looking for, it's no longer the 3 colors, which will be amber, meaning it's in progress, delayed, etc. They merely want to indicate whether it's achieved or not achieved. That's the end of the story line, which is basically the DPME framework as far as then the targets themselves. I'm going to invite DDG responsible for strategic planning to allude further on that. Maybe then to come in on the issues related to the Q3, and I'm hoping now that the CFO, she had problems. I don't know if she's now on the platform. DDG would indicate. But on the SA Connect, our biggest challenge, and the reason why we've been highlighting and underscoring it extensively, is the adverse impact on the fact that we could not retain the funds for it. We are now faced with one scenario, which is then requesting for a rollover of the budget. And that rollover process window will open up end of this month, only for it to be considered, honorable members, in October. My biggest concern or risk is that we are now sitting with a scenario where the project itself is at standstill. We don't have funds. We are actually, I wish the entities, CEs were also on the platform to really allude further on or unpack this further, but perhaps CFO can. My biggest concern is, one, we've got SMMEs that we had already, who had already been tasked. You can imagine the businesses of those SMMEs, quite a substantive number of them. Under the SA Connect, we have about 75 SMMEs participating. Now, those SMMEs, while some of them have actually proceeded to connect sites, they have not been paid, and they will not be able to be paid by either Sentech or BBI. And this will also have adverse impact on their own businesses because they have been overexposed. We've been trying to now talk to our sister department and funding institutions to assist them, but you would know the plight of the SMMEs. We also then now sitting at a risk because the business model is that you also run the operational month to month. meaning keeping the connectivity lit or the connections open, based on what you get in and then you pay back. Now, what then has happened in some instances, and this is, I'm having a discussion with USASA because they've also delayed, although USASA's budget is available, they've delayed in payments. And this has resulted in those SMEs left with no other option but to switch off the sites. Now, these are sites that could be government sites, educational sites, libraries, clinics, hospitals, and we cannot afford to have those sites switched off. So we are now trying to find contingency measures to see how we can find funds to be able to ensure that the connectivity remains. Now, and what has been the strategy? So from Q3, we've been saying to managers, highlighting this risk with the CFO, and she can come in to indicate that you've got to fast track the submission of these invoices. Also, us as a department, those who are doing the certification have got to do it timelessly. Otherwise, there was a risk. So we highlighted the challenges and imploring, whilst on the other side, we were engaging National Treasury, pleading to them to then say, this new process, this new modified cash system is not working. We're not the only department. I've had calls with Eskom, calls with Transnet, and other big infrastructure projects across the state, who also equally face the same challenge with National Treasury. We all wrote to them. Our CFOs have been in constant meetings with the colleagues at National Treasury, pleading to them, and especially when our project started off on a different model and a different framework, and then suddenly last year, the 1st of April, they're now introducing a new system halfway through the project, which is then a problem, which was a problem for us. So that's the scenario that we're sitting at. And we will have to therefore still sit and find means and ways. Even this morning, the CEOs were calling to then say they're still waiting for funding from us as the department. And I had to tell them to say, until such time that we now, which is the window that is left, is the rollover budget, we don't have any other particular option in this instance. And it is quite a dire scenario and situation when you then look at the amounts and what has already been spent on the project. Then the Honorable Matafa was asking the question with regards to the issues of accountability, and I think Honorable Bodlani as well. Yes, we are going to come back and report on this issue of consequence management, Honorable members. We are going, we've written to the officials. In some instances, Honorable members, for example, the PC4IR, there was no resource for it, unfortunately. And the structure itself, with, as I said, these instances, what we were doing before, we had people on contract, the contracts were being renewed. DPSA now comes back and says we can't continuously, perpetually extending those contracts, and we've had to let go of those officials. And this has had then the adverse impact that the project itself, the PC4IR program and the target in terms of the monitoring, there was no resource in the department to deal with that. The Digital Economy Master Plan, as well as the other projects related to the district development model, as well as the gender, the GBV project, as well as measuring our target in as far as gender, youth, and people with disability. All those are fully capacitated. There are officials in the department, and that is where I was saying that consequence management is going to have to take. And we've had written warnings with them. SPM has had engagement with them. We've sat down, we've assisted them in as far as showing what is expected in terms of the delivery of this, as well as then the reporting of it. And in most instances, in some of these instances, honorable members, it has been about the lack of cooperation by officials in terms of doing what is expected. But then in other instances, there has also been the dependency, external dependencies with people outside, where then when we were issuing circular and information, they would normally, which has been another challenge that we constantly face, when stakeholders, external stakeholders who are the drivers, request additional time and extension, that has then led to us then obviously our target being deferred or delayed in this instance. And unfortunately, when it came then now to Q4, we could no longer extend their request for them to say they need more time, either in completion of the surveys or provision of the information. In terms of the question about the resources that was then being asked, the department and how long it's going to take us to fill up the positions, just want to indicate that it is quite an extensive period. And I've been also appealing to management, because what we've done is that we've identified these positions from them. We do have a task team that weighs in, because some of them are new positions, because then we have to make sure that we weigh in as far as the job descriptions and the activities that are entailed. That requires a consultation with DPSA. And then after the DPSA, we have to advertise. After the advertisement, we have to sit down and shortlist. Sometimes we get applications. So there is a huge demand and available resources out there, because we get applicants up to about 4,000. That was for the internship program. People out there who are really looking for jobs, but it's just now the challenge has been sitting down within the shortlisting and availability of managers to be able to go through that particular process. I will not be able to, we'll sit down with HR, honorable members, and map out as to how long it will take us to fill in the vacant positions. And then we'll be able to rather submit to you a tangible time frame than for me to do the speculation on the platform. On the issue that Honorable Bodlani asked about the analog switch off, or the comment, I really do appreciate that, Honorable Bodlani and honorable members, the appreciation of the fact that we've been spending, if you really think about the fact that since 2015, Sentech has been doing dual illumination. So it means on an annual basis, the government has been spending between 75 to about 135 million annually just on dual illumination. We cannot afford to spend more, because it meant that we're taking these funds for in terms of other programs that Sentech needs to. If you really calculate it, and we're talking about, for example, a satellite for communication services of the country, we could have spent on that. If you really think about it, Sentech, that money could have been in as far as maybe assisting the community broadcasters with their signal distribution. But it's been money that has just been maintaining two signal, which is actually a waste. And we really are appealing that we need to get to a point where we resolve this matter, and we need to end this particular project. Only because on the broadcasting platform, which is where SMMEs, youth are thriving and waiting for under our audio and audiovisual policy and the creative industry. They really want to produce content for us. So we've got to move into a platform where we're able to create for them to be able to put up that content on digital platforms. And that would also could have been funds that we could have used to then support the creative industry. As I said, the community broadcasting platforms, in order for us to be able to provide more entertainment, more information to the citizens as well. So we do appreciate, and we're hoping that the engagements that the minister is going to have with the broadcasters will then foresee positive outcomes and result in this instance. With regards to the question that was asked about our policies, Honorable Bodlani again, to then say where are we with regards to our policies, just to give an assurance in terms of our APP, which we'll be presenting. The first, in terms of the policies and legislation, is the finalization of the draft audio and audiovisual content services and online safety white paper. It is already in the office of the minister, the policy itself. We're hoping that it will be signed off and we'll be presenting. I know it's much awaited, much being asked about from the portfolio committee. With regard, and then the other one is the revision of the digital economy master plan implementation plan, which we are again, but we're still continuing driving the implementation of the digital economy. We're also looking at the national AI policy to finalize it and then table it to cabinet. Mindful also, honorable members, that there were issues that were stemming from the discussions with the operators last week. The issues related to competition, we've had that in the ECA review, and that also piece of revision of the ECA is also in the office of the minister for their consideration. There has been much debate as to whether we want to do, and it was said in the meeting on Friday, we should do piecemeal or not. Sometimes when you do piecemeal, unfortunately I wasn't at the session on Friday, but when you do piecemeal, it does help because you're addressing a particular issue. At times it's the sector, I don't want to call who it is, but they would then do a pushback with regards to some of our legislation that we want to introduce because it may not work in their favor. But for us, for example, our main focus is ensuring universal access and services for all citizens, affordable data as well for all citizens. And that is inscribed in terms of what we do in the ECA, in the white paper, and obviously our objective as the department. The other piece is been obviously the reform. Again, I think Honorable Bodlani was asking that, how do we streamline our work as well as our projects? We've done the ECA review, looking at how to make sure that we wind down USASA, because we've seen the work that is being done. USASA is actually being done by both the regulator as well as our other entities. We're also looking at the merger between BBI and Sentech. Again, this also talks to the work in terms of our streamlining. Again, we are hoping that we will therefore get a direction policy, direction leadership with regards to the work and carrying this forward. And all of this is intended to make sure that the work, we complement each other, there's proper alignment. We don't do duplication of work as well as even the entities themselves, but we all work then for the common vision collectively. And that also then was talking to one other instrument, which is also in the ICT white paper, which is then the regulator of the future, where we were talking to then incorporating the work that is being done under ICASA, under DOTZEDNA, under FPB, and also then the issues related to data, some of which are obviously within the information regulator. Those are still, therefore, need to be thoroughly assessed under this administration, and a future direction then being posed as to what we then do with it. My last comment before then I invite the entities to also respond, and also from the department as well, is on the spectrum allocation, which was also asked by Honorable Bodlani. The spectrum allocation, we've released the spectrum, honorable members. I think the big question is then to say to the operators, the spectrum that you received from 2022, when you then talk about reducing the cost of data, can they illustrate that the data cost has been reduced from then the allocated spectrum that they received? Can they illustrate extension of coverage in the country, especially in rural and remote areas? Can they illustrate that they have actually connected schools, health clinics, and other public facilities? as it has been imposed in their social obligations before we can talk about further allocation of spectrum. It will be a dire scenario if we allocate additional spectrum for it not to derive the benefits that we had sorted out. So they need to prove to us that the spectrum allocation has derived those benefits, and those benefits are realizable, and we are able to see them in as far as then the reduction of cost, as well as extension of coverage in our country. Honorable members, I'd like to then invite the DDG and the CFO, and after which I would then like to hand over to ICASA for their responses. May I then ask, yes, thank you. DDG Lebabo, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, DG, and good morning again, President DM. I think the DG has covered most of the questions, but there was a question regarding the Q3 and Q4, that in Q3 we had 5 and 6 in Q4. So that's correct. The targets per quarter differ from quarter to quarter. But, you know, we are in Q4, that's where you are able to get, you know, the overall annual performance targets. And then hence we are having 6 in Q4, Honorable Matafa, on that one. And there was also the issues of saying, you know, I think from the chairperson, you know, asking whether in terms of if the target is out of the control of the manager. So there are those that are out of the control, but there are some that are within the control of the manager, where we are required every quarter to provide the challenges and then how we are going to mitigate against those challenges. So, you know, of those that are within their control, that's where we are saying, you know, we provide necessary support as well as necessary consequence management in terms of, you know, making sure that the colleagues are really performing. Hence, we have measures in place. The other thing that we are also doing to ensure that in the current financial year, we don't repeat certain, you know, poor performance. We have already engaged with identified programs where we know there are, you know, shortfalls. For example, the DDM, we have already engaged all stakeholders because we depended much on the stakeholders. So we have an agreement in place that says, how are we going to do the reporting? How should the implementation plan, you know, be consulted and agreed upon with all relevant stakeholders? So we'll do, you know, across all the other APP targets to ensure that certain things are not repeated in the current financial year. Though we might have a challenge now in the Q1 because of, you know, the structure which just has been approved, but we have engaged all project and aligned and even appointed the project manager for each APP target. So that is what I just wanted to add, DG. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Portfolio Committee members. Good morning to the leadership of the department. DG has already answered on SA Connect. I just want to reiterate that SA Connect is a multi-year project that was set, especially for the phase 2. It's set to end on the 31st of March 2026. The abnormality that happened is that the budget was allocated up to 24-25 financial year, which is why we find ourselves with request for rollover of the funds, because the budget was only allocated up until the end of the 31st of March 2025. And then another thing that made the situation abnormal in this financial year is that there was a change in the modified cash basis of accounting. Previously, we were allowed to use the mode of paying the payments with advances, so we'd advance the expenditure. Now came 1 April 2024, we were no longer allowed to expense in advance. And as a result, we had to pay the payments that we paid to the entities under an advance account and then reconcile with the entities later on to reconcile to expenditure. So as we are sitting, we're sitting over 1 billion that we have now processed to Treasury. We've tried to request from Treasury to retain the money, to retain the funds. But I think with 3 attempts that were sent to National Treasury, the response still came back to say that we need to use the process called rollover process, which is what the DG was explaining, that it will impact negatively on the SMMEs that are awaiting payments since the 1st of April 2025. It's a waiting game, because now we cannot use the money that we are supposed to roll over. Those funds are supposed to go to National Treasury and be reallocated to the department. But I do know that we are going to do one last attempt with the DG via the Minister's Office, where we write to National Treasury and explain the impact that this process is going to have on SMMEs. The department can also face legal litigations in terms of non-payments and all those things. So at the moment, there is those processes that are still going to be taken, and we don't know what the outcome of that process will be. But as we close 24-25, meaning Q4, we closed with a huge underspending on the department's book, and that underspending is because of the SA Connect money that have not been spent. And because of the project being a multi-year project, some of the expenditure was going to incur during this time that we are at, because it's supposed to be ending the 31st of March 2026. So the manner in which the entities have set their project is that they know that they were going to make payments up until the 31st of March 2026. So we will await, we will take this last process as the last attempt in trying to get the money. So at the moment, there is monies that are within the entities. There's about 895 million that is within, that is spread across Sentech, BBI, and SETA. So the expectation, if we go through with the rollover process, is that the entities must pay back the money into the department's bank account. We must then take that money from our bank account and we pay it over to the National Treasury. National Treasury then adjudicates on this rollover process, and it's not always a guarantee that they will approve the whole amount that you are requesting for a rollover. But let's say they approve the whole amount, which is 1 billion, then that billion gets reallocated as a second adjustment, as a adjusted a budget, which the process of which is the process that gets approved in December, and you only get to use the funds in January. So that will mean we will only use the funds in January 2026. So that puts the question of what happens to the project between 1 April 2025 until that January 2026. And that is what we are still trying to get to make National Treasury understand that we cannot hold or put on hold the project, because SMMEs have already delivered and they're expecting the payments. So that's the input that I can make on the SA Connect project. Thank you.
Thank you, CFO. We will come back on the issues related to risk and compliance and internal audit. I think those were asked. May I then invite the entities, which is the ICASA, through you, Chair, to then respond on the questions posed to them.
Thank you. Thank you, Gigi. Gigi, sorry, I missed that last point. You said we're handing over to ICASA.
Yes, Honorable Chair. They were questions that were posed to ICASA.
Okay. Thank you. Let us invite Ms. Matibi to take us through the responses for ICASA.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair, and honorable members, DM, DG. Chair, what we have done, we have grouped all the questions from members. So the CFO will respond to all finance-related matters. Then I have the acting CEO, Mr. Phil Molefe, and lastly, it will be David Molapo, and I will close after the 3 colleagues have responded to the question. So CFO, if you could start first in that order. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to the members for the questions. Chair, okay. On the issue of what is the real challenge, especially in finance that affects most of the what we are trying to achieve, whether it's 30 days or budgeting and why we budgeted on that issue. And the question was whether is it process, people, or resource, Chair. In the main, I would say it's all three, Chair. And the reason, and if you recall, Chair, on the presentation, we put that we are looking at the structure and re-looking at it, and also is dependent on whether we got funds to then implement whatever the outcome of that process of review of the structure is, Chair. Is also the biggest issue is the money element of it, because if you look at our allocation for a number of years, it has been reduced, and now you look at what is sitting in your personnel and you compare to your operation, you often have a situation where you don't have sufficient funds. So now we'll have to go play the gamble of, and because finance is not the only one that has capacity issues, we'll then have to prioritize to say, let's say engineering, if engineering requires or PRA requires a particular skill, how do we then facilitate within the limited resource that you have? So, and the challenge here, Chair, which also linked to the issue of why the money sat there for that long, is the issue of capacity. To say, I always say you have the quantity or the number of people that you can say you can work with, but if the skill is not there, Chair, you then sit with a bigger problem. Because as I said, Chair, that money came in 2019, 2020, and 2021. If you have a I'll say accountants, in a way, not to disrespect my colleagues, but I think in a sort of openness, I must be straight to it. When money comes in that you cannot identify who does it belong to, because in a case, I think the catch-22 here is the money may be paid into the ICASA own personal account instead of the license, the broadcasting or postal account, which means it actually belongs money that a licensee was supposed to then be issued with a license and vice versa. But it was paid into the main account. But because it cannot be identified to say who paid the money and for what purpose, it then sat there for a while. What was supposed to have been done was the money was supposed to go as a liability instead of a cash. Because what is currently happening, Chair, if you look, it means if you look at the 591 that we presented at the top, included in that 591 is actually the credit, the positive that sets off. So we put the two together in one sort of account, instead of the other one was actually supposed to be a liability and go sit as the money that you owe to somebody that at this point you don't know who it is. So the practice from what the colleagues are indicating is that's how, if money, they don't know where it is, that's how it has been done in the past. It said there, but why it was not probably followed up is a case, or it could be two issues, Chair. One could be it was considered immaterial and therefore to invest time to go back. But for me, Chair, because of the classification, the money would have been better if it was sitting under liabilities than the bank and cash from an accounting point of view. So that's how the issue of resources and capacity comes in, because you need people who can interpret and know that from an accounting point of view, how do I deal with certain things? So how are we going to remedy it going forward, Chair? And as I said, Chair, it was a beginning because initially I was told a different version of what the issue was. But now that we have this view, I could only confirm, I think 65,000 where the actual deposit I saw in the bank account. But I also have to see the other way so that I know that actually the money needs to be moved out of this suspense account and put, even if it's a suspense account, that suspense account should not appear under bank and cash. It should be sitting under liabilities, Chair. So that's how we're gonna try to deal with that. We're just gonna apply accounting until the bank can assist us, because they are the only one who from time to time assist us in terms of like tracing who deposited the money, and from there we can then identify whether this money should be sitting and where it should go. It could be going to NRF, which is my logical explanation. I don't know somebody who can deposit money into an ICASA account except licensees, but you will just have to wait and see what the outcome of the investigation is going to be to come to that. On the issue of processes, Chair, these issues, Chair, it links to also the review of the delegation of authority, because there are certain things that are currently happening, Chair, because the delegation or the policies prescribe them to happen that way. And if you were to go against it, you run a risk of things being declared for irregular by the AG. If, for instance, a PO is not signed off by myself, it could be an issue from an audit perspective to say it was not signed by an authorized person. So the review that is being done, Chair, and as I can give comfort, Chair, tomorrow we are the audit committee. You will be looking at the policies for the, I think it's for the 4th time now, and then from there they will have to then go to council for final approval. So the process and also the policy and delegation of authority is something that we are going to be putting through from tomorrow onwards. We're targeting by the end of the 2nd quarter, the policies must be reviewed so that we are able to then implement some of the changes that we think are necessary to then address the issue. On the issue of the structure, Chair, it's a difficult one, because currently we have presented what we think is an ideal structure or what we can then work with. However, Chair, as I said, the issue will then be resources, because after approval, the process doesn't end there. It will be a question of, do you have the money? And currently, as we are, Chair, that would be a challenge that will then be put to council and colleagues to say, how do we then address the issue of money element? Chairperson, once the structure is approved, but council had prioritized finance, because we come every day, we talk about 30 days, and some of the 30 days issues that are there, they require someone who will be focused in challenging, in addressing some of the challenges, unlike currently where everything then rests with the CFO and the team. And just to add to that, Chair, part of the process review that is identified is part of the people that are processing the payments, Chair. At some point, we had about 2 or 1. So if one goes on leave, then you are remaining with 1 instead of 4 people. But I'm pleased, Chair, to report that we have appointed an additional 2 people to make it 4, according as per the structure. And those people, one of the colleagues will be starting on the 1st of July. The other one, due to the commitments to their employer, they've indicated that they will be starting in August, 1st of August. So we are working toward addressing that, Chair, from the people who are doing the daily processing of invoice, which we think it should be able to then address some of the challenges that we have in delaying in the delays in payment. The other issues of the process itself, Chair, as I've indicated, it should be taken in care of itself through the review process of the policies and delegation of authority. The issue of the engineering spend, Chair, majority of the spending or the other spending in the engineering space, Chair, was because of procurement challenges, Chair, where, for instance, you run the process up until towards the end of the process. When you get there, you find that the service provider the bid is non-compliant. Therefore, instead of like proceeding, because if we're to proceed on something that you already know it has challenges, you then have irregular expenditure, which we then say, let's rather maybe restart the process. But that adds delays and delays in the process, Chair. But it's unfortunate that it's a catch-22. Do I want, or do we want to see regular expenditure being incurred? And so ideally it should not be. We then choose the better devil or the worst of the two to say, let me restart the process. Let me not award, but normally the biggest challenge that we have, Chair, are processes that are going to be running, and then by the end you find that the process is not satisfactory, and then we have to then restart, Chairperson. Chair, on the issue of how the link between irregular expenditure and AG findings, Chair, and how we are addressing, Chair, if we pick up an issue, Chair, we don't proceed forward currently, unless it's something that was not previously raised. But if we see something, we try to put immediate measures, Chair, that we make sure that we then execute. In the current year, we actually had a delay in the procurement process simply because there was a matter that was raised by the AG that we needed to then first address before we can allow the colleagues to proceed. Where they needed training, Chair, we had to then upskill them and explain to them what will be reasonable. But again, it's an issue that, Chair, is ongoing, because if you recall, Chair, there are too many laws that affect the processes. So now you find that today you dealt with issue of mandatory requirement, because that has become now the BSc area to say, if there are mandatory requirements, make sure that they are clear, that the various bidders will be able to understand what you require. We don't want different version of submissions or of what the evidence will be, which the AG will say. Then, for instance, you say you wanted a gold or a platinum service provider. Here we don't know, they don't even mention if it's gold or platinum, it's just a partner. What does that mean? Then they say you didn't comply, you awarded to somebody who didn't have meet the mandatory requirement. So it's actually sometimes it's an interpretation issue that we then have at least through the issues of irregular expenditure. On the issue of the spending and monies that are not returned, Chair, I think the ICASA is lucky that the majority of the money was awarded or is allocated for a specific purpose. In this case, Chair, for instance, the multi-year projects that we have, let's say the second spectrum, as the colleagues have been indicating, Chair, the issue is sometimes you are litigated in the process. And when you are litigated, you first have to address that. So Treasury ordinarily will say, okay, we understand this, the second spectrum is going to be awarded in 2025, 2026, 2027 or so. Therefore, you can keep the money. But the challenge is that the DG and the CFO have highlighted, Chair, because the actual approval, you get it late, and then you're left with a few months to then implement a real, Chair, and they do impact on some of the issues that we are dealing with. How do we then ensure that the APP is met, or the implication of underspending on APP, of the underspending on certain items? Chair, where possible, if there's a running contract, we then request the CEO as authorized or delegated official as an accounting officer per our treasury instruction to then extend contracts, so that in the meantime we're not left with a void of services not being rendered, Chair, unless it's a new service altogether. And I'm going to use the example of the subscription TV indicator that was not achieved, where we needed an economic service provider. Then that particular one, we then have to probably look at doing it internally, Chairperson. So that's how we then deal with issues of ensuring that the performance itself, where we can, we ensure that is achieved. On the alignment of the budget going forward, Chair, and to ensure that we are not going to be having issues of these variants, big variants of money not being spent and all that, we, in the new financial year, Chair, we had asked the colleagues to make sure that the budget itself is reflective of the activities. If, for instance, we know the IMT is going to be awarded in 2026, 2027, as the colleagues, how much do you objectively think you're going to be spending in 2026. And then they gave us the amount that they think is going to be spent on that year to avoid coming into a situation where we are always reporting big variances, Chair. Chair, I think I've addressed all the questions that I wanted. If there's anything else, Chair, I will be glad to come back, Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Matibi, are you
Mr.
you still
Molefe?
continue?
Yes, Mr. Molefe will continue, then we'll.
Yeah, good morning, Chair, and good morning, honorable ministers, the honorable committee members. My name is Philemon Molefe. I'm standing in for the CEO of ICASA. So I'll try to address the questions pertaining to the ministerial policy direction versus the satellite framework, which ICASA is currently developing, and I'll also address the questions related to the licensing of spectrum or additional spectrum subsequent to the 2021 auction. And also I'll address questions relating to the multi projects which are carried by ICASA, which as a result, they result in some of the APP targets not being addressed. Now, regarding the satellite framework, if I can just explain, there's a difference between the two. The ministerial policy direction talks to the individual service licenses, or in simpler terms, it relates to the licensing of the service licenses themselves. It's got nothing to do with the licensing of spectrum, number one. It's got nothing to do with developing a regulatory framework that addresses how a satellite can be licensed in South Africa. So the licensing framework itself, pertaining to the satellite framework, what it does is just develops the procedures and a framework that assists in the development of the satellite services. So you can take it like when you talk about spectrum, like let me make an example, like when we are going to license a spectrum. There are spectrum regulatory frameworks which are put in place. For example, you'll have to update the National Radio Frequency Plan in alignment with the treaties, international treaties at ITU level. That paves a way for the licensing of spectrum. Once that is in place, then the next phase is to say, you need to open up a process now in terms of licensing those particular services, be it satellite, be it terrestrial services. Then the spectrum becomes an enabler. Now, in this instance, the licensing framework, the satellite licensing framework, paves a way for interested parties or entities to apply for licenses. But in terms of the conditions of the license itself, it falls under Chapter 3 of the ECA. So there is a separation between the two. So the ministerial policy direction will affect anyone who wants to apply to ICASA for a service license, not only for the purposes of utilizing satellite as a transmission medium. That license allows the holder or the licensee to utilize any form of transmission medium, be it fiber, be it satellite, be it terrestrial like broadcasting or mobile operations. So that just to give an explanation in terms of there's no direct impact. So the ministerial policy direction won't affect the satellite framework that the authority is currently developing. And in terms of the licensing of the additional spectrum, I think the DG has responded to that. To say in 2021, 2022, the authority released a spectrum for IMT via auction. And then some obligations were imposed in their licenses, the social obligations, the coverage obligations. And then they've got a specific term in terms of those obligations to be complied with up to about 5 years. So it doesn't make sense to avail additional spectrum whilst the obligations for coverage capacity, including the social obligations themselves, have been implemented. So currently, ICASA is trying to embark on phase 2 of the licensing process. And that requires that a competition assessment should be conducted. And that will also entail just to ensuring that we are comfortable that the spectrum as a scarce resource has been utilized efficiently. But I think the DG has covered that. And then in terms of the projects, most of the ICASA projects are multi-year projects. You don't commence them in one financial year and complete them. They are spread a minimum of about 3 years. So some of the difficulties and challenges that ICASA experiences in respect of the resources and the skills, and so you'll see there's a dependency or reliance on utilizing the services of the external service providers. But in terms of the mitigation, it's more about embarking on the recruitment of more resources. But we all know there are challenges as far as budget is concerned, because that will assist the authority in terms of ensuring that all the APP targets are achieved, rather than relying on the service providers. I think the CFO also has indicated in terms of that reliance on the service providers and the challenges that we have in respect of supply chain processes. We can give an example in terms of for 2024-2025 financial year, in terms of the APP targets under engineering and technology, when the CEO explained in terms of why there was underspending. Already the efforts were made to ensure that engineering and technology achieves 100%. And then one of the mitigating factors there was that internal resources were utilized when the procurement of the service providers was not successful. So yes, ICASA tries to utilize the resources at hand just to complete these processes. But I must also emphasize that ICASA, the projects which they are undertaking, most of them utilize same resources, which are spread across different projects. So going forward, I think there must be that appreciation that more budget will be required in order to capacitate ICASA and improve on the skills in order to sustain the ICASA APP performance going forward. I think if there are any other questions which I might have skipped, we'll get an indication from the committee and members. Chair, I'll post them.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Dave, can we close? Through you, Chair.
Thank you, Chairperson. Let me just touch on 3 points. The first one relates to the question asked by Honorable Vilagasi in terms of the unachieved and partially achieved. I do concur with the Honorable that not stating the partial achievements sells ourselves short. However, there is actually method in that madness, so to speak, in that what one is trying to strive for is to make sure that when the AG finally comes, we have actually, achieved everything that we set ourselves to achieve. So it's a form of assuasion for us to be able to perform at a very high level. However, I want to give the committee comfort that the partial achievements that we realize get documented, and we use them as part of the internal processes then to spare ourselves forward in terms of achievement. So that is really the way it is. But also one wants to look at this in the light of the DPME frameworks and, the relevant nomenclatures that we have to deal with coming out of that. Because there you are talking about targets that are cumulative. You're also talking about targets that are non-cumulative. So if you're talking about cumulative targets, what that means is that you can't do the next thing before you finish the one that you're handling. And the converse is true for the non-cumulative targets, because with those, it's about what you achieve at a point in time or at a quarter in time, so to speak. So those are the things then that play themselves into the manner in which we report. If one then speaks to the point that was raised by Honorable Botlani in terms of the research that we do. Yes, Honorable, we do have a document that we produce. It's called the State of the ICT Sector Report. We produce that annually, and I believe that we can be able to provide this to the committee so that the committee is able to then, appreciate how the sector is actually being impacted, either by the regulatory work that we do, but also simply in terms of the dynamics that are actually happening in the sector, key being issues of the market structure, looking at it from the point of view of the key players in the sector and how then one then is trying to address those from a competition point of view, because then that has a ripple effect in terms of reduction in terms of data costs and so on and so forth. So we do have a report that deals with that, and it's actually a very good read. So we can share that with the committee. The last point that I want to address is the one that was raised by Honorable Imran in terms of the notable underspending. What effect is this having on the APP? One wants to contextualize this question within what is called the activity-based costing, which is a principle that almost all government departments have to comply with. So what you find here is that you have the operational plan, which is nothing other than a document that shows the activities that you are going to execute in order for you to be able to deliver the outputs that you have in your annual performance plan. So the notion then is that when you plan those activities, you need to cost them. So that costing then lends itself to the terminology of activity-based costing. So what I'm implying with this is that what you want to do is you want to make sure that for every activity that you plan, you cost it, and then as you then execute the activity, you should then ipso facto be spending the money that you have there. If everything goes according to plan, then you will not have that discord between the deliverable and the spending that you have, where you have underspending, but on the other side, for instance, you have over achievement. Because if you look at the achievement of ICASA in this 2 quarters we are talking about, in the 3rd quarter we're at 93%, in the 4th quarter is 91%. One's thinking would be that with that kind of performance, expenditure should be commensurate, so that, should be around probably 90%, showing that you are actually spending in accordance with the performance that you are actually espousing there. So that is really how it is done. Yes, it worries then when expenditure is low, and then your performance is high. So that being the case, and so one of the things that we are really trying to emphasize internally is that we need to make sure that this marriage, if one can call it, continues in the manner in which it's supposed to continue. You spend, you execute, then you are able to show performance that shows the same level of expenditure that you should actually be experiencing. Chairperson, those are the 3 questions that I was able to pick up that I have just responded to. I hand back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dave. Thank you, Chairperson and honorable members, DM and DG. I think from my side, Chair, just to close, I think from the team, it's been quite evident that there's been some lesson learned in our past financial year. And as part of our interventions for the new year, we have identified that systems, process, and skill set are the top 3 things that we need to be focusing on. Primarily from members, it's quite clear that we need to come back to the committee with evidence so that the alignment of our APP to the ECA, as the chair has actually alluded to, it's going to be important so that the impact should be actually provided to the committee. And just to give you some comfort that whatever we do, it's not just operational, but there's an alignment in terms of our regulatory mandate. I think the challenge that we've always had is we didn't have sufficient systems within the authority in a form of tools. I think I did raise this, Chair and honorable members and GM, that in terms of ICASA to be even more effective, we need to come back to the committee with evidence in terms of what is actually happening on the ground. We have put in plans. We're busy with our technology improvement plan. So the whole issue of modernization of the authority, I'm quite sure that, and pretty well that with those kind of improvements, we should be able to come back to the committee at least with some evidence, and then with showing that alignment between our APP and most importantly, Section 2 of the ECA Act. So Chair, with that, that's basically how then we've closed our past financial year with our Q4. So we are now awaiting the final audit from AG, which I'm sure then once, as Dave has said, in terms of our performance, we'll come back to the committee with our close-up report. But thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. That then would conclude the responses from the department and ICASA. Thank you.
Thank you, DG, and thank you, DM. Have you got any additions to make as we close this item on the agenda? Okay, so thank you, DG, and thank you to the team from ICASA for your comprehensive responses. I really appreciate the deep dive, especially from yourself, DG. I think you spent quite a while responding in detail, so we really appreciate that. Honorable members, that was concluded the first item, or the first item of the amended agenda. That was the receiving the Q3 and Q4 reports and engagement from DCDT and from ICASA. Let's go on to the next item. Secretariat, can you please flight the agenda, please? And I think the agenda was to receive the amendments, if any, to the strategic plan and the APPs of the department and of the remaining entities. If you recall, yesterday we did 3 entities. We did Post Bank, Post Office, and .ZEDNA. They did not come before the portfolio committee before with their APPs, before the budget V2. At least after budget V2, they did not come. So they had a presentation with us yesterday, and today we were to receive the amendments, if applicable, to the department as well as the remaining entities that had appeared before this portfolio committee after budget version 2, but which now needed to come back to us after the final budget version 3. So I know there has been some developments and we have received correspondence. Maybe let me ask Secretariat just to update us and also share with us the correspondence that has been received from the Minister's office with regards to the delayed tabling. Maybe to begin with, can we get a confirmation, Hajira, has there been amendments to the entities? That's the first instance, and the department. Maybe a confirmation if yes or no. And thereafter, the letter from the department from Minister Solly Malatsi is about the delayed submission of the APPs and the strategic plan. If you can please.
Good day, Acting Chairperson. We received last night a communication from the Minister's office indicating that certain entities, namely ICASA, SABC, Sentech, NAMISA, FPB, USASA, USAF, BBI, and CETA. There will be no amendments. This was sent on the group. This morning, we received a letter to say that there is a delayed tabling letter, which we only received this morning, and that was also sent to the group. The department is here to explain further, Acting Chair.
Thank you so much. Before I ask the department to comment, maybe I'd like to just quickly read out the contents of the letter submitted for the record, by the Ministry of Communications. It was submitted yesterday to the Speaker, Honorable Didiza, and it reads as follows: that the tabling of the Strat and Annual Performance Plan to Parliament is a statutory and compliance matter as defined in Chapter 5 of the Public Financial Amendment Act. However, the department is delayed in tabling the updated APP. We were informed yesterday that it was to have been tabled by the 13th. The letter goes on to say that the delay in finalizing the updated APP was a result of several interrelated factors, including the timing of National Treasury's response to the department's funding request for SA Connect and certain state-owned enterprise projects, which was received in early June 2025. This required adjustments to the APP, which in turn necessitated further consultation with key oversight structures, such as the Audit Committee and the Portfolio Committee on Communications. These processes could not be completed in time for the APP to be tabled as initially planned. Therefore, the Minister says, I humbly request that the updated APPT pay be tabled on or before 20th of June, and that was signed off by the Honorable Minister Solly Malatsi, sent yesterday to the Speaker's office. So maybe let me invite the department to further add to the letter and comment on it. DG?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Chair, as indicated in the letter, and I think I alluded to this in our presentation as a department, we do have challenges, Chair. The one, as I said, is the SA Connect. We were expecting the retainment of these funds. It required that we needed to adjust our APP in this regard. Honorable members, you would also recall that, for example, one of the other issues that we were talking about was the business rescue for the post office. There was supposed to have been a 3.8 billion, my apologies, by funding by the state. We've had to therefore augment that to look at other alternative programs, as you heard from yesterday's presentation as well from the post office. And then lastly, Chair, we were also expecting, amongst others, obviously funding for ICASA to be able to have the necessary systems to look at the quality of service and also network rollout in the country prior to then the allocation of the spectrum. That would have meant that for the adjustment of that, because we did not get funding for that allocation of funding. And then lastly, from the Post Bank, Chair, we were looking at the capital funding for the new state bank. Again, we also did not get funding from the fiscus in that regard. It meant, therefore, Chair, that we had to adjust our targets to be reasonable within the budget allocation that we have. You would also have noted, honorable members, that the budget itself was only approved earlier on in June. So that meant that there were a number of delays. Hence, I think, firstly, there was the concession from the Office of the Deputy President to then say departments will have up until the 13th of June. But for us, because we were still in negotiations with National Treasury in the hopes that we'll still have these funds available, of which obviously the letter came to say that there wasn't any, we then had to adjust our APP target, Chair. Reasonably, maybe to give assurance at this juncture, Chair, honorable members, our strategic plan remains but it's only the APP targets that are being shifted because obviously the funds of it. It has to be signed off by the minister and the deputy minister, of which process is still underway. And that is the reason why there are delays. And we are humbly requesting, honorable members, your indulgence as well as your approval for us then to table this later. Thank you.
No, thank you so much, DG, for further deepening our understanding and appreciation of the challenges you have faced. Needless to say, I think the issues you raised regarding SA Connect and South African Post Office are critical factors that we must factor into account in the next years into the APP for 25-26. Honorable members, so that necessarily means this particular item on the agenda will not be able, we won't be just dealing with this further. My understanding is upon receipt of this, after it is tabled with the speakers, then we will get it, and then the Secretariat will have to factor this into our program next week. Maybe let's invite Secretariat, maybe Tuminkosi or Hajira, you want to comment on that? Is there any indication in terms of next week? Have you all reflected on this? Because we had prior knowledge of this expected postponement to next week. Because given the fact on July 2nd, this will be debated, this budget vote will also be debated, so that in 2 Wednesdays, not next week Wednesday, the following Wednesday, this budget vote will be debated. Maybe Secretariat, have you all reflected on that?
Good day, Acting Chairperson. We have not done that. I can check with Mr. Ngoma, who's dealing with the program.
Okay, so maybe for now, we will, honorable members, for the reasons that we've received and the letter that the minister has sent to Speaker, this item on the agenda will therefore be carried forward until we are in receipt of the amended APP. And I'm quite happy as a committee, if we can also, there's been a request from the DG that this committee accepts the delayed submission. So if there's any disagreement from members, please raise your hands with regards to that. In the absence of that, I'm quite happy that we would accept the explanations given and we agree to the deferment and await the receipt of the amended APP. Honorable members, that concludes item 2, and the item 3 was I did indicate that we will deal with the minutes when we have a quorum of at least 6 members. Maybe Secretariat indicate to us if we have 6 members now to deal with the minutes.
We'll check now, Acting Chair.
And whilst you are checking on that, honorable members, you know that we were supposed to be meeting today to review the subcommittee of the portfolio committee was to review the shortlisting, the interview processing and the shortlisting process for the MDDA candidates. There has been consensus that since there has been some changes in the constitution of the memberships of the committee, that we extended for a further week to allow the new members the opportunity to review the list. So that will be, it will not take place today. It has also been carried forward. Secretariat will indicate to us when they relook at the program as to when we will meet, but it will probably be sometimes next week.
To the Acting Chair, I'm not sure if I'm counting correctly. I'm counting 5 members. Is Mr. Khaga still on the platform?
No, I can see Honorable Bodlani. I can see Honorable Shongwe. I can see Honorable Matafa. There's myself. And who else are you seeing there? As Honorable Velakazi is there, that's right, that's 5. Okay, so I can also see 5 members. Honorable, in that case, we don't have a quorum to adopt the minutes and we can't proceed with that item. We will request Secretary to carry that forward to the next portfolio committee meeting. Honorable members, that brings us to a close of the items on our agenda that we had agreed to discuss this afternoon. Safe to say that we have got, in the next week will be a very busy week, as has been busy this week. The next week will be busy and be busy in the following week. Thank you, honorable members, honorable Deputy Minister, the department chairpersons of the various entities, members of the various entities, and honorable members for your attendance in this portfolio committee meeting. I think we have covered the substance that we intended to cover today, and this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members.
Thanks, DJ.